We have a black swan. Now, you may have heard the phrase a black swan event. Now, black swan event is known in goal-setting circles, I suppose, as something that happens in your lifetime that you're not expecting. Because back in the day, black swans were never seen. You see, that was the whole point. Until they discovered them in Australia, I believe, and they imported them across in the 19th century. Now, we've had a couple of black swan events, if you think about it, in the last couple of years. We had the COVID, and we know about that. There's the lady with the mask. There's a lot of people with masks on again now, aren't they? As this new variant comes through and China opens up to the world. Now, that obviously took care of our industry. Actually, it helped our industry, oddly enough, with the stamp duty and the people wanting to move out, bigger homes, gardens, etc. But the second black swan event that we never expected in such a short period of time was the war in Ukraine, which of course has many ramifications, and the biggest ramification for us, of course, is this raging inflation. Now, inflation took off for a number of reasons. We won't talk about that today, but we know it. But it's caused interest rates and the mini budget and all sorts of things, and the mortgage market therefore has ground to a halt. Well, I won't say the mortgage market, but the residential market has ground to a halt. In fact, it grounded last autumn. Now, these black swan events have happened, and you think, well, hold on, Paul, there's so many changes going on in the world, so what's the point in setting goals? Why set goals? If there's so many changes going on, there's no point, because we're going to have to be adapting and changing as we go along, because there's bound to be another black swan event coming through at some point. So why do we do it? Well, the reason you do it, the best way of looking at this is a picture of a tree. Now, imagine a tree, big old oak tree, for example, with its firm trunk. The trunk doesn't move in the wind, but the leaves and the foliage do. And a better picture here for you of a tropical storm. And I have a palm, I think it is, with its trunk quite firm in this storm, and these leaves blowing all over the place in the storm. Now, that's the best way of looking at it, because if you've got goals set, or if you know your direction that you want to go into, then you're firm in your direction and your vision. And then your foliage can move around to its heart's content as much as you want it to do. And that's totally cool, because that means you have the goals, you have your vision, you're firm in your direction, but you can still be flexible. And she who has flexibility will win in the system. And that's key. You've got to have flexibility, of course you have, especially when there's black swan events coming around. So let's just take a look at what we do. Now, the question I'll ask you for changing the sector, is there anything going to happen in our sector that's going to change? Probably. You're going to change, the sector's going to change, and therefore that's another reason for setting the goals. So the question really is then, where do we start? When it comes to goal setting for 2023, we're a week in now, aren't we? So some of you were off for the week. I had a lot of out-of-office messages last week. Do not disturb me. I'm not arriving back till the 9th of January. I thought, fair enough to you. So where do we start then with goals? Where do we start? Well, the first place that you start with any goal setting, capability, goal setting, adventure, is to start with your reason why you do what you do. You've heard of this before. You want to find out your purpose. You need to discover inside you what is your purpose. So Simon Sinek calls it, great author, love that guy. His book, Start With Why, is his phrase there. The why do we do what we do? And you need to know this, because this gives you the drive, the motivation to be able to do what you need to do. Now, last September, all of us had a bit of a why moment, didn't we, with the Queen's funeral? You know, you remember these TV pictures, don't you, of the guys? A fantastic picture, isn't it? Look at that picture. It's just absolutely phenomenal. And if we live in the United Kingdom, you have this this why, because of the royalty or not. But it did probably stir your little hairs on the back of your neck when you saw this going on. It gave us our why. Now, your why may be very different. There's all sorts of whys or purposes that you may have. I've got here, for example, it might be family. It might be humour. You might want to have some fun. It might be prosperity and wealth. It doesn't matter what your why is. But one thing I will say to you, though, is whatever your purpose is, it's internal. It's inside you. It's not for external purposes. A lot of people like to put it into their branding, into their social media, and I get it. But I see pictures on LinkedIn of people on their family holidays with smiling kids on a beach saying, this is the reason why I do my job. I understand that, But the public don't need to know that. It's for you to know. It's internal. So that's just a little message there for you about your why. Now, I have a purpose. My purpose is very clear right now. I'm 60 this year. I know I don't look it. Thank you. Anybody says that, I do actually. But I'm retiring at age 70 because that's what I'm doing. So I got 10 years now, and I want to do what I can in 10 years. I want to pay back. I've been in the sector for almost 40 years now. And I want to pay back to the mortgage sector, the financial services sector, and the speaking sector, training sector as well, as much as I can. Make a living along the way, of course, but help as many people as possible. Now, that drives me. That gives me my purpose. That gets me up at 9:30 on a Saturday morning, which isn't early, to do what I do. So you've got to have your purpose. Okay, so once you've got your purpose, then you need to then start setting your goals. So let's look at a blueprint for you that you can help with setting achievement goals. And here's the blueprint. Now, isn't that lovely? Now, that's the blueprint itself. It's all there. That's all you need to know. Along the top here, I've got the goals themselves. So over here, I've got the long-term vision, which I want to take a look at. That's the first place that you start. That's not your purpose. That's your long-term vision. Then I've got annual goals. Then I've got the quarterly objectives over there, and then I've got the strategic next actions. These things flow. That's the big chunk thing. That's the annual goal. That's the quarterly goal or objectives, and that's your weekly, monthly, daily strategic next actions. Now, everything you do this year should be geared along that line, and we'll come on to that, particularly when we do the SNAs later, because you may divert yourself off and do some work or do something that's not geared towards your goals. If that's the case, you can stop doing that. Time is critical for you this year. Along here, I've got SMART, which you've heard about before. We'll talk about SMART. That's how we tighten up our objectives and goals. But I'm adding a load of new things in there for you, which comes from NLP and all those good things for you. So that's the blueprint for you. And I think we go straight to that one there. Let's go into the long-term vision, shall we? Let's talk about the long-term vision that you've got. Now, what is a long-term vision? Well, a long-term vision is your ability to see beyond the year. Now, I call it a 5-year goal. Now, every year since the mid-90s, in fact 1996, I've been setting 5-year goals. Now, these are not really goals, I suppose. These are more visions or direction. But it gives you a 5-year direction. And obviously it's very, very flexible. Of course it is, because 5 years, who would know, what's going to happen? But it gives you flexibility, and that's the key. But it gives you that sense of direction, which is just as important as well, because you know exactly where you're going. So let me give you an example of how we do this. Now, let's go back in time. For me, let's go back to 1996. Do you love that phrase? 1996. Now, I don't know what you guys were doing in 96. It's a long time ago. Now, 1996, just to remind you, there's Oasis, my favourite band, and they're looking very young. That's at Nebworth. Were you at Nebworth in 96? Shows your age if you were. But brilliant band. But of course, the point was that was 1996. Now, 1996, I was working for a corporate organisation, Eagle Star, and I attended my first NLP training. There's David, the NLP trainer, and he introduced me to NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, which I thought was brilliant at the time. Now, this is a long time ago. Nobody had heard of it at this point. A couple of books, that's about it, really. Now, he inspired me massively, to David, and it was so exciting to hear about NLP and what it was about. So he shared with me how I should set my goals and objectives and stuff like that. And he talked about this 5-year vision. He said, what you want to do is you want to imagine where you are in 5 years' time. So 1996, of course, was the start date. And I went forward to 2000, 2001, 2000. 4 to 5 years, I was being flexible to start with. And I set myself a long-term vision. At the time, I wanted to set up myself as a self-employed freelance training consultant. I was working as a training manager at Eagle Star, corporate, paid a salary, pension, car, all that. But I wanted to set up on my own. It's a goal I always had, but I was scared to do it. So I set this goal. He said, okay, so you set the goal. So what does it look like when you've achieved it? He said to me. I said, I don't know. I said, I'm just doing it. He said, no. Give me a snapshot of your life in the year 2000 when you have achieved this goal. What does it look like? We were trying to organise what we call a well-formed outcome. I said, okay, David. I said, it looks like this. I said, I'm in my study at home. And the study is a purpose-built study. And I've got all my computers, and I've got my books, and I've got my manuals all around me, and I'm feeling very happy. And the postman calls, and the postman drops a letter through the letterbox. She drops a letter through the letterbox. I open up this letter, and inside this letter is a check from a client, a corporate client, who I've just done business with, and they're paying me. Now that tells me that I've set up on my own. I'm now freelance, relatively successful because I've got a check. Do you remember those things? And around me, I can hear happiness. I've got my children around me, and everyone's happy, and all sorts of things. And we timelined this, and I'll talk about this later for you. A bit of hypnotic stuff going on. And we timelined it, and I thought, wow. He said, look, Paul, it's going to happen. I said, no, it's not, David. I said, I've just thought it. It's never going to happen. I've got to work on this. It's a lot of things to do. He said, don't worry about it, he said. He said, the conscious mind sets the goal. And I was very conscious when I set that goal, didn't I? I talked about the well-formed outcome, what it looked like, what it felt like, what I was seeing, where was I, what time of year was it? It was spring, by the way. So my logical, conscious brain set it. He said, this is the key, he said, your subconscious gets it. So the subconscious is a bit of a metaphor, really. It's what happens behind the scenes, isn't it? We'll get the goal. And I was terribly sceptical about it. And I thought, that's not going to happen. But the course finished, went home. I sort of thought about it. I couldn't forget that memory I set in my head. And sure enough, it's as weird as it sounds, in 2000, it happened. Okay, I probably fabricated it a little bit by making sure that everyone was happy and the kids were around me when I got the letter through the letterbox. But the fact is, I got that letter from the Bradford and Bingley Building Society, who paid me a cheque for some work that I did. And I had a little bit of a bonus, really. There's a picture of me. That's my daughter was born at the same time. Can you imagine that? And that gave me some drive, by the way, and some purpose. Because didn't I look young there? I got hair and all sorts of things there. That was a long time ago. Now that's the point, though. That's how you set a 5-year long-term vision. It's called a well-formed outcome. We'll come on to that a little bit later on for you. But you've got to set that 5-year vision. Where are you in 5 years? What are you doing? Picture you having achieved that goal. That's the key thing. Now, people set 5-year visions in different ways. A lot of people like vision boards. Here's a photograph there from the internet. This is somebody's vision board. This is a board that somebody's put pictures on it of what they want to be doing in 5 years' time. So everybody does it in a very different way, and I don't mind how you do it as long as you do it. But I think that the well-formed outcomes, is something that helps you to get there in 5 years' time. Okay, come back to that a little bit later. True story, by the way. So let's get into goal setting properly then. Let's get the conscious mind working on setting the goal, and then we'll let your subconscious mind later get the goal. That's the key. Conscious mind sets it, subconscious gets it. So don't worry too much about setting a goal you think is completely hairy and audacious, ain't going to happen, because the subconscious will get it for you. So the first thing we need to do, let's go back to our blueprint, shall we, is we've got to take a look at the long-term vision, which we're comfortable with. Whip back to the blueprint there for you. So let's have a look at annual goals then. Annual goals are key because the annual goals allow us to set the things for 2023. Put that back into the blueprint. The quarterly objectives are starting to come through now. They are different, and we'll talk about those a little bit later. Annual goals, quarterly objectives, I've given them different titles. So that's an important one. We need to get them SMART. SMART is an acronym which helps you to understand how goals work. So I'm going to take you through SMART. The whole thing. If you use SMART and use my method of SMART, it will let you get and set those goals properly. So let's get back to our blueprint. And we'll head over to the S to start with. And let's have a look at exactly what the S has got in mind for us. Specific to start with. Take a look at specific. Now, your goal that you set, the annual goal and the quarterly objectives, need to be specific. They need to be so that you can understand them and you can achieve them and they are manageable. The problem with a lot of people is they set goals that are just too big. We call it chunk size. They set a goal, which is a great goal, but it's just too big, hairy and audacious. It's a great big goal. Now, I'll give you an example. This year, we're looking to provide training for you guys to become financial advisors. That's a goal that we've set ourselves. It's part of the vision, but it's also an annual goal. Problem with that goal, guys, is it's too blooming big. It's a great big goal. And where do you start? You've got no idea. So that goal needs breaking down into smaller chunks. So, for example, it's just visual there. I will want to be doing a number of tasks or small goals to achieve that goal. So this week, for example, I was chatting to a couple of people that I need to get on my side. I was chatting to my mate Gordon down at the LIBF about what they are doing with the DIP-FA, the Diploma for Financial Advisor, how it's currently working, the timescales, giving access to their materials and getting myself onto their list of tutors, that sort of thing. That's the first thing I needed to do. I then spoke to my mate over at a really good network who take on financial advisors, or they take on mortgage advisors whose permissions are stuck. You've joined a network or a principal, and they ain't going to let you go beyond mortgage advising. So this network will take you on and take you into financial advisor competent status. So these things, you've got to do this stuff. So these are little goals, you see, which help me towards my big goal. So when you set the goal, if it's too big, it's just like enormous. It could be that, this year you want to do more prospecting. You're running out of clients, you need more clients. So I'm going to be doing more prospecting. And that's great, but it's too big to work on. So you've got to break it down into small chunks towards to getting those goals as well. So that's a specific one as well, which is important, isn't it? Okay, so that's specific. Next one for you is simple. Now, simple is quite clear. If you set the goal, you've got to let your subconscious get it. Okay, that's fine. But set the goal, make it simple so that the subconscious gets it. That's the key thing. So it understands it. Don't make it complicated. So for me, the goal is to help as many people as possible to become financial advisors. Okay, that's fairly simple. It's too big and he's breaking down, but that's the goal. So make it nice and simple. Don't make it complicated. That's an easy one, isn't it? The final S for you is stretching. Now, I believe in this. I think any goal should be stretching. I talk to lots of people who tell me that they're going to set a goal and, I don't know where to start. No, I can't do that, Paul. That's beyond me. I can't cope with that goal. It's too big. It just scares me. I said, well, don't worry about it. Just set it and let it happen. It's got to be stretching. Now, this hit home to me a number of years ago when I was given a birthday present. Now, there's a picture of a police car. Now, I wasn't nicked, as they say, but I was given a birthday present of a speed course run by the local constabulary of how to drive very fast on the motorway. And me and my mate David did this. It was brilliant. And we went along to this policeman. He took us to I think an airport it was, or airfield, which was disused. And we did all the skid pan and we did learning, etc. But the best part was getting onto the motorway in his police car, driving as fast as we could. Now, the objective was to drive as fast as you can. Now, I've never gone beyond sort of 90, 95, maybe 100 occasionally on the motorway. But we were allowed now to go as fast as we wanted. Now, I saw the speedometer there, as you can see. And what I wanted to do is to get over 100. And I thought, well, okay, let's set myself a goal. Let's get to 110. That's really scary stuff, isn't it? And I did. I get in the car. I was going first, and I put the foot down on the gas, surged through 90, 95, got to 100, bombing along, And, of course, the police car, everybody moves out of the way, don't they? So, let's go for it, Paul. So I put it down, and I got eventually 110. Come on, let's go for this. I got to 115, and I achieved 116, 116 miles per hour. So I was about there on the speedometer. Oh, that's enough. So I slowed down. We pulled over and we changed seats. And I was just like so excited about what I had achieved. David got in the car and sped off. And within 60 seconds, he achieved 128 miles per hour. Well, there you go. The fact was, he saw me go first. So it's a bit of a Roger Bannister moment, wasn't it? But the fact is, he achieved a much quicker score than me. I could have stretched my goal a bit more, but I didn't. If I'd stretched it, I might have got 125, 130. So that's a little story there about stretching your goal. Don't worry about it. Just stretch yourself a little bit more just to see what you're capable of doing. And there's a picture of me. Again, I look young there, don't I? And that's my mate David. He's smiling because he got a much faster position than I did as well. So that's stretching. So there's your S's then. So there's your S's. So let's pop that back into the blueprint. And what we'll now do is take a look at the M now. Couple there for you. The first one is measurable. Now the point here about measuring is if you don't measure the goal, you don't know that you've achieved it. No, that's just the way it is. You need to measure the goal. Now, we are used to measures because last year we had all this stuff going on the telly. This was measuring coronavirus in the UK. You probably remember these graphics from the BBC. Pretty scary stuff, wasn't it, really, at the time? And the government, of course, measured everything. Well, they were all the scientists, wasn't it? A SAGE and everything. The scientists measure everything, don't they? And they're using KPIs, they're using metrics to measure coronavirus. Now, you should do the same. When it comes to setting your goals, probably the objectives now, you need to have some KPIs. And there's two types of key performance indicators that you need here. We call them lead and lag KPIs, lead and lag. Now, what's the difference between these? Well, there is a big difference between these two because you do need to know the difference. Now, essentially, a lag goal is your annual goal. Now, a lag goal is great, but this is the goal you set yourself for the year. In other words, after year one, you've achieved the number. It's lag. It lags activity. When you've achieved it, but it doesn't help you get there. It's just the end result. A lot of managers use this incorrectly. They say to the financial advisor, look, I want you to do £100,000 revenue this year. That's your target. It becomes a target, doesn't it? It's not a goal. It's a target. It's a lag. It's too late. Now, I'll give you an example. This year, one of my annual goals is to ramp up my YouTube channel, our YouTube channel, which we've been going for 12, 13 years now. It's got a lot of subscribers, it does very well, but we want to improve it and increase the number of subscribers. And I've set myself a lag goal of achieving 5,000 subscribers by the end of the year. It's an annual goal. But I don't know until I've achieved that until the end of the year. So it's too late. It's not a good target to set when goal setting. That's how you look at it. Now, I recommend you look at lead goals. Now, lead goals or lead KPIs are essentially for your quarterly objectives. These are what leads you towards the ultimate goal. That's the best way of looking at it. Now, the YouTube example for you. Two of my smaller objectives. The first one is to upload 3 videos per week into YouTube, spread throughout the week. And that's it. That's a lead one because I can do that each week and I can see it being done each week. And if I do it every week for 52 weeks, I'll probably get my end goal. It's a lead KPI, 3 a week. Not difficult to do. Also, my goal is to SEO or search engine optimize every video, which means digging underneath and putting codes and words and stuff in it. And again, I can do that. Every video is quite easy to do. And that's a lead KPI. So what I'm saying to you then, if you're going to set KPIs and objectives and metrics, make sure that you look at lead KPIs as opposed to lag ones as well. So whatever is your goal, make sure you get some KPIs. So that's the good one. So that's measuring the goal. Measuring is really important. Now, what's the next one there? Meaningful. The goal's got to be meaningful. I think it needs to be connected to your vision. It's going to be connected to your purpose, your reason why. If it's not, then don't do it. The YouTube channel helps financial advisors, mortgage advisors. Of course it does. So it's meaningful. It doesn't cost anything apart from time. It's free. Google pay for it, don't they? Well, at the moment they do anyway. They're making big losses at the moment. It's got to be meaningful for you to achieve what you want to achieve. So that's the M's then. So we're into the SMART then. So what do we got? We've got S, we've got M, and we're looking good on that, aren't we? So let's get into the A now then. And we'll take a look at achievable, shall we? Because the A is an important one. We've got to be able to look at these things. So let's get into that one, shall we now? Let's work on that one. Achievable. Let's pop back in. So let's whiz down into our achievable. Now we've kind of talked about this a few times really, about achieving your goal. Stretch yourself, yes. Make sure it's meaningful, all those good things. But the goal's got to be achievable. It can't be. I mean, I could set myself a goal of landing on the moon at the end of the year, but that's just not going to happen. I could probably work it out, but it's not going to happen. But again, you need to stretch yourself as well. Now, the best way to look at this is if you set yourself the goal and you get a little bit scared, just say to yourself, well, I can figure this out. That's a great phrase to use. I love that when people say that to me. It shows me they're confident and they know what they want and they know what to achieve. They can figure it out. So, set the goal. I'll figure out how to do this. The subconscious will start to whir away. You'll start to think about things as you go along. You'll wake up at night and suddenly have an idea. You'll have an idea while out walking the dog. But a lot of people have limiting beliefs. This is for another day. We can talk about this. This grinds a lot of people down. It's called all sorts of different things, isn't it? Biases, imposter syndrome I've heard of before, where people have a limiting belief inside them. Oh, I can't do that. Financial advisor. Oh, I can't do that. My clients don't want to have financial advice. It's not going to work. That's just a ridiculous idea. It's a limiting belief. Again, if you can figure it out and you can work it through, get rid of the limiting belief as well. So that's the important one for achievable as well. What else have we got here? We've got this lovely one here called act as if. Now, acting as if, again, it's a subconscious, it's a psychological one. Amy Cuddy talks about it on YouTube, on TED. It's you act as if you have achieved the goal. You act confident, you act assertive. Rather than saying, by the end of the year, I'd like to be earning, I want to earn £50,000 net profits. Say to yourself, well, I am now earning £50,000 net profits. So imagine at the end of the year, you're now earning it. So that's acting as if. There's a lot of psychology on that one as well, which again, we can talk about more another time. Here's a better one for you, all areas. Now, what we mean here is that when you set the goal, you look at all areas of your life and your business. And that's really important to do that, all areas. Now, what do I mean by all areas? Well, I mean every single part of your life and your work. I've got for you the Magnificent Seven, and I want to share with you what I think your goal segments should look like. Now, I use 7 every year. Now, these are my Magnificent Seven. Hopefully, you're the same. The first one is personal development goals. You need to have CPD. You need to have development built into it. I've got a number of goals for my own development this year. One is I need to touch type. I need to finally learn how to touch type. It's a goal. Developing myself. It's a major part of what you're about. Number 2 is revenue. Yeah, you need to pay the bills, especially the current situation. So you need goals around revenue. These are often KPIs and targets, aren't they? You need a goal around maximising technology. I do every year. I've done that for 25 years. And you need to do that too, because we haven't really hit technology properly in the mortgage sector. So that's a goal segment, if you like. There's a number of goals within that one as well. Number 4 is business generation. You need to generate business. The phones ain't going to be ringing this year as much as they did last year. Your inbox is not going to be full of people making inquiries. You need to get off your butt and generate business. So that's another major goal for you as well. Health, welfare and fitness. This is more holistic now, isn't it? I'm going to be working for another 10 years, subject to my health, of course, I've got to be fit. I've got to have health and welfare is important. That's you're in a game. This should be part of your goal setting as well, so don't be afraid of that. Really important. Number 6, family, friends and social. So, yeah, don't forget what you're about. Friends, loved ones, family, children, spouses, parents, what's your social life like? Look at that as part of your goals. Well, nothing wrong with that. And for me, I do a publishing goal. I've published 9 books. I've only do that because I've had a goal set for 25 years in publishing. So they're my goals. And here's a snapshot of my 2023 goals, as you can see. This is literally, let's highlight that so you can 2023 goals. And as you can see, I've got all of these: fitness, health, tech innovation there, self-development, marketing, which is business generation, publishing. Again, all I've done is each title is a mind map, of course, and each there are my annual goals for the year. I've been doing this for 26 years, and I put it into a learning diary, and I make sure that I achieve it. Now, the question is, though, what about your goals for 2023? What are you looking to do? What are you looking to achieve in 2023? That's up to you what you do. I've got a few ideas, actually, for you, which I want to share. I've got about 40 suggestions. These are just suggestions. If I were in your shoes now, setting up on my own, or been doing work for a couple of years or whatever it is as a mortgage advisor, and I'm looking at 2023 with all the changes, these are things I would do. So just have a look at some of these, see what you think. Let's move over here so you can read those. So there's a few coming through down there already for you. Wealth management referrals. You might want to master your CRM system. Let's move out the way so you can see all of these. Yeah, just wait for more to come down. You can read them, can't you? Let's get out the way so you can see those clearly. Couple come up for you. Ramp up my CPD. Could be going. Start advising income protection to all clients. I'm not talking about life assurance, income protection. We often miss that one out because it's not mortgage related. Make a plan to become a financial advisor. Increase my permissions in the mortgage sector, so maybe equity release. You might want to do some buy-to-let. You don't need permission for that, but you might need to get some knowledge going. Master low-cost delivery of advice. You might be having a very expensive office now with Chesterfield sofas. You might be looking at doing something different there. You might want to think about inheritance planning. You may have to refer people, but you might want to get that business. Debt management services. Are you able to offer that? Can you refer? Can you do it? Can you get trained in it? Mortgage capacity reports, by the way, are for people that divorce. And with the 3 Ds, it's going to drive the housing market this year. Death, divorce and debt. Now, people go through divorce need a mortgage capacity report for the courts to show how much they can borrow. There's money in that for you. You can charge £1,000 a pop for those things. Improve my social selling. Here's some more for you. More prospecting. Get good at tire kickers. Start to qualify better. R&D submission to save tax. Get out of the way for you. Increase protection. Look into long-term care. Improve presenting to the camera. Master a referral management system. There's loads here. You might want to take a photograph of that one or a snapshot. I'm not suggesting you do any of those in any shape or form, but if you did, you wouldn't go far wrong, would you? Again, you can get the copy of these and rewind them back if you wish to as well. So again, there's some suggested goals for you. Just some ideas. So remember, all areas of your life is key. Okay, let's whiz on there. Let's take a look at the R then, which is our next section. I want to take a look at realistic. Not difficult, this one. This is pretty much, is the goal realistic? Okay. Yeah, it needs to be stretching. It needs to be connected to your goals. But are you convinced that you're going to do it? If there's any doubt, then kick it out, really. It's got to be realistic. Remember, your conscious sets the goals and your subconscious gets the goals. So if you don't think you're going to get it, don't worry, but just write it down because your subconscious will get it for you, which is key. That's the one, isn't it, boy? Responsible. This is my big one now for the next decade for me. I think goal setting's great, but we need to be responsible to all sorts of things. I heard a mortgage advisor the other day who was saying to me that his goal this year is to be able to purchase a 5-litre diesel 4x4 SUV car. He had the spec of it, and he's going to drive around in this thing. I thought, well, okay, I get it. I get why you're doing that. But is that really responsible to the climate and the environment? You can't knock it. It's great. And I remember seeing when the petrol prices were rocketing back in July, August, September time this year, a couple of people on LinkedIn. There's one BDM who put a photograph of the petrol pump. He just filled up his car with petrol, and it was £200. And he was like saying how expensive is petrol. I thought to myself, well, what car are you driving? £200. I thought, okay, is that responsible? You got to think about these things, because the world has changed and the mortgage sector just doesn't want to change. You've still got a lot of people like that, and those dinosaurs need eking out the radio. So anyway, responsible. For every goal, there's a cause and effect. So if you set yourself a goal, which is the cause, when you achieve that goal, it has an effect. So think about that logically. You've got this cause, which is the goal. It creates an effect. Now, the cause, as I said to you there, is the goal itself. So the goal's achieved. That's great. But what's the effect? And let's just think about this for a second or two. There's 3 here. Number 1 is that there's an effect on you. Now, I remember back in 2015, just coming out of the recession at that point, I had a goal. I had a lot of debt to clear. I had credit cards coming out of my ears and all sorts of great big mortgage. So I had a revenue goal which drove me all over the world delivering training. Now, did it have an effect on me? Jumping on aeroplanes every 5 minutes and driving around the world? Yes, it did. I put on a lot of weight. I wasn't very healthy. I was very unfit. So yeah, it had a very negative effect on me. So you got to think about that. Number 2, others. It affected my family big time because they never saw me. my children were growing up, Bethan was at school doing open days. I was never there. I was always in China, Japan, India, or whatever. So she's never forgiven me for that. So it has an effect on others as well, because it has an effect on the planet. I remember in 2015, I was given a BA gold card. Can you imagine that? I was flying so many miles, I was given a gold card. Okay, I was pretty chuffed about that. But the fact was that all these jumbo jets flying around the world, did it affect the planet? Yes, it did. It's just so you look at it. It affected the planet. So that's an example about your goal. Is it responsible, effectively, isn't it? Are you looking after things as well? That's the key thing there. Okay, so that's responsible. Let's get into the T now for you. Let's get into the T, nice and easy. Timed, first of all. Now, you've got to have a time scale attached to your goal. If you don't have a time scale, there's no point getting it. 5-year vision may not have a time, but an annual goal certainly would do as well. You can put it off to next year if you want to, but there's got to be time scales to your goal as well. This is my favourite one, the towards. Now, when you set the goal, phrase it so it goes towards something as opposed to away from something. This is quite important, actually. Now, in NLP, we have this thing called meta programs, which is the way people operate, how people are motivated. Here's a picture of some of the meta programs, which we can talk about another day. But this is the big one up here. People move away from goals, or they move towards goals. And most people are somewhere along that. You might be motivated by getting away from stuff, or you might be motivated by going towards things. Then goal setting, a lot of people are away from. They'll phrase their goal negatively, and it's not good. You want to phrase the goal so it's more positive, so you're moving towards something. So let me give you a couple of examples for you. I know a couple of examples come to mind here. A lot of people say they want to lose weight, which is a health one. I've had this goal since I was 16, I think. And this year I've got the same one. I've got these smartwatch now to do it all for me. Now, losing weight's great, but it's a negative, isn't it? What you want to do is to gain a different figure, a different persona, a different health situation. So that's a better way of phrasing the goal. It could be you don't want to lose any clients this year. Yeah. You're desperate for remortgage business and refinancing, which is what will keep you going this year. But you're desperate to stop clients going back to lenders direct, because the lenders are cute. They use you as long as they need you. Believe me, they're not that loyal. If you've been in the industry long enough, you know that lenders can very quickly turn to direct business where they get more profit. And they're getting people information 6 months before their fixed rate comes to an end, and they're encouraging them with slightly lower rates to go direct. So you don't want to lose clients, might be a goal. That's not the right phrase. You want to phrase it, I want to maintain my client bank. So that then starts to make sure that you do MOTs and you do regular connections with your clients. So it's just the way you phrase it, really, which comes into it. So there's key information, isn't it? Okay, last one for you. A couple of minutes to this one. So it's an important one. Last one is timeline. Now, a timeline is something you set. Now, remember my 1996 goal when I was at my NLP training, when I could see in the future, in my study, sitting down, happy, comfortable, letter arrives, check from building society paying me fees. That was a well-formed outcome. Now, what I did with my timeline is I put that well-formed outcome into my timeline. Now, you either buy into this or you don't. And I didn't initially. I was very skeptical of it. But what you do is you look to see where your future is. Now, if you tell me where your future is, it's somewhere usually in front of you. Now, my future is over there. My past is over there. So what I do is I look at my future. And you can vision this like this. Here's like a picture of a future time tunnel. And all you do is you jump into your time tunnel and you whiz forward to the future. You drop down to the moment when that well-formed outcome has been achieved, and you revisit it, you associate yourself with it. And then you come back out again, and you come all the way back to the current time. But as you do that, you make a note of everything you did towards achieving that goal. And I kind of go into hypnotic trance, and I do this, and I go back through my timeline. And I can see me down there doing all the things that I need to achieve that goal. It's massively powerful. We can talk about it in a bit more detail another time, because some people buy into it, some people don't. But this is how you get your subconscious to get the goal, by putting important goals into your timeline. So that's something that I do every year when I set a really important one. Definitely do it for my 5-year vision. I've already got one for the next 5 years, and I'll share that with you another time. So that's timeline. Love all of that, don't you? So that's SMART. That's your SMART goals, SMART quarterly objectives, really. I've just put the stuff at the top there for you. You've got your long-term vision, you've got your annual goals there, and you've got your quarterly objectives. These are the ones that need to be SMART. Just a couple more minutes then before we wrap up. We've got 5 minutes or so more, and then we'll take some questions from you as well. Important now to take a look at what else is going on just to finish off the job. Now, quarterly objectives are great. We talked about those, and there's a picture of my goals. So you need to turn them into quarterly objectives. There's a photograph of my Q1 objective for last year. I just use a piece of paper. I don't use anything fancy. If I can just dive down here and show you what I use. Each year I use just a little diary. That's all that is. It's just a learning diary. It's just a cheap diary. And in there I've got my goals, as you can probably see. There's the goals. And I've got there on page 1, I've got my Q1 objectives, which are based on the goals. Remember, don't do anything unless they're connected to your goals. And that's really important, because otherwise your time management gets screwed, as they say. So objectives are easy enough. Now, what you now need to think about doing, though, is getting more tactical. And that's when you get into these things here called strategic next actions. Now, strategic next action are the actions you take following your quarterly objectives. These are more weekly or daily do list activities, strategic next actions I call it. Now, some kind of examples of SNAs, as I'll now call it for you, are these things. I've got SNAs, CPD, marketing, feed, tech, business, personal writing. So when I do a task, I always categorize it as one of my SNAs. So for example, this afternoon it's pouring with rain here in Cheltenham, so I'm going to be proofing and writing some chapters for a book that I'm publishing, or a third edition of a book I'm publishing this year. Now that goes down as SNA writing. Because it's a task, I've got to proof a number of articles and write one more this afternoon. It's a task, but it's geared around SNA writing. As you can appreciate, these are all geared towards my goals, because they're linked, aren't they? In other words, if you find yourself doing something that's not linked to any of your goals or objectives, you shouldn't do it. And it's up to you, of course, whether you diverge across. I had a call from a corporate client this week, and she wants to license a number of our CMAP materials to help her team. Now, I didn't have that as a goal, in other words, to talk to corporate clients about licensing. But I thought, hold on, that's actually business development, so that goes under that one. So sending her a proposal is something that goes under there. So it keeps you to your goals. That's the whole point behind SNAs, which I think are important. Strategic next actions. Now, once you get your actions and you've got your to-do list, a lot of people like to colour code their diary. Here's an example of my diary from a couple of years ago. Now, each of these activities, these are all SNAs, by the way. Obviously, there's delivering training here, there's writing over here, there's exercise or whatever it is I'm doing. Even exercise, of course, is part of my goals. I colour code it so I can see at a glance that I am doing things according to my goals. I'm not doing anything else that's nothing to do with my goals. So therefore, I block off what I'm doing, what my activity I'm doing as well. So that's important as well. Once you start getting into goal setting and doing your SNAs each week and doing your to-do list, you'll start to realise that everything's achieving the goals that you set yourself. I did say I'd have a quick look at one of the big issues that we all have, taming your inbox. Now, we've all got email. It's what we use all the time now. This particular lady's got 10,000 unread emails on her inbox. It's scary stuff, isn't it? Now, what do you want to do with your inbox is you need to clear it every day. You need to have a clear inbox as a goal. Make yourself a goal this year doing that. And the way you clear your inbox is that during the day you might pick up urgent emails. Of course you might. I get that totally. But at some point during the day, either first thing in the morning or last thing in the evening, you want to spend 30 to 60 minutes clearing your inbox. You don't do it any other part of the day. And when you clear your inbox, you go through and you operate the 2-minute rule. And the 2-minute rule is quite clever, really. What happens is you go to the first email and you do your daily clear out. You go to your first email and you say to yourself, there's your first email, look at this visually for you. Can I deal with this in less than 2 minutes? If so, deal with it. So if it's a quick response that requires just a tap, 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 quick response, deal with it. If it's going to take you more than 2 minutes to deal with it, here's what you do. The first thing, so, is it going to take me more than 2 minutes? Make it an SNA task. Use the task list on Microsoft, whatever you use. So if it's going to take more than 2 minutes, put it down as an SNA task. Now, the lady who contacted me about that licensing, she sent me an email requesting this, and I said, thought to myself, it's going to take me more than 2 minutes. So I made it an SNA biz development task, and I did it 2 days later. So that's the first way of getting rid of that email. Second is delete it. It's obvious, really, isn't it? Just delete it. I joke here, but if it's not important and it's going to take more than 2 minutes, just delete it. If it's really important, they'll come back to you. Oh, I didn't get that email. Did you send me an email? No, I didn't get it. It's funny to do that. Most, by the way, your SNA task them. The third one is you send them out of office. If you really want them to go away, just send them an out of office. They might go away. But that's particularly a joke, really, isn't it? I'm not saying you should do that. So that's the way to tame your inbox. So, in summary then, my friends, let's talk about you for a moment or two, and we'll pick up and take questions. We've talked about how to set achievement goals. I've given you a blueprint, vision, annual goals, quarterly objectives, SNAs, even colour coding your diary as well. I've given you suggestions of the kind of goals to think about. This year is going to be particularly challenging. You need to have a plan for this year. Nobody really knows what's going to happen with inflation and interest rates. Interest rates won't come down till very late this year, if at all. They may even go back up again in a couple of weeks' time. It will cause more turmoil. If you think interest rates are going to go back down to the 1%, 2%, then don't think that, because they're not. Those days are gone. Inflation has been embedded into our economy now. It's burnt in. It's coming down around the world. It's trickling down with energy prices. Of course it will. It'll come down to the 6-7% mark, but it'll be incredibly difficult to get down below that. The Bank of England know that. It's been burnt into people's salaries. My son, he's in the private sector. He's getting himself a 10% pay rise because of the RPI, the CPI. The public sector are all striking to get theirs, and rightfully so, because they've been neglected over the last 10 years. So it's been burnt into people's salaries now. It's been burnt into expectations, so don't expect interest rates to come down. So you need to work with that. The residential housing market will tank this year. House prices will fall in certain areas. If they don't fall, inflation riding at 10% will make them fall anyway. They will fall by 10% because inflation's going up by 10. If house prices stay the same, then they're falling in real terms. So take a look at your marketplace. Take a look at a long-term vision of where you think you need to go and what you need to do. So set yourself some goals and then let the subconscious get them. Anyway, enough of that. Action plans. Let's talk about you then. Remember the blueprint that we talked about? So there's a snapshot of the blueprint for you. If you're interested, this material is contained in my book. Here's a photograph of the chapter, Setting Achievement Goals in Your Mortgage Business. Now, I've got a great big chapter in the book. There's the bookshelf for you, and it's in the Mortgage Revising the New Rules. So if you want to get yourself a little bit of reading for the spring, Amazon have got that, Lulu have got it as well. So just head out there and get that book bought. It's a good read. Hopefully it's got everything I know in there. You can read about achievement goals if you want to update yourself on that as well. So that's my session. Hope you enjoyed that, guys. I'll be seeing you all again very soon. I will stop now, but I will hold on for another 10 minutes or so, take any questions if anybody has it. So have fun, everybody, and we'll see you all soon. Bye for now. Enjoy your Saturday.